Hey everybody, Boris. Welcome to the crosses section for November 21 through November 25, 2016. And I think the story in the crosses this week is sort of going to be a little bit more muted, mainly because I think the price action generally in the currency market is going to remain much more muted because we don't have that much news on the calendar. We don't have too much economic and geopolitical risk. All of the geopolitical risk sort of falls the week afterwards. We have the European referendum in Italy. The week after that, we have the UK arguments in front of the Brexit court after that. And the US is essentially going to be on holiday. So it should be a relatively muted, I think, week. But there are some interesting possibilities simply because if you're looking at the technicals, there's a couple of places that are very close to support. Some places are pretty close to resistance. And maybe worthwhile to kind of take a nip and tuck approach to some of the ideas. So one idea that looks interesting from a technical point of view is Euro Kiwi. Now, Euro Kiwi, let me just sort of go through all the charts here, what I have in mind. So Euro Kiwi, to me, the interesting story here is that there is a bounce back in Euro that's possible. We have PMI data that should be pretty good. I don't know what Draghi is going to say this week, but maybe he's going to say that they're thinking of starting to taper. They certainly have a very favorable exchange rate at this point, so there's no reason for Draghi to come in here and sound super hawkish, super bearish, super dovish on the monetary policy. All of that could provide a bounce in the euro, a short-covering bounce in the euro, and with Kiwi still sort of very, very reluctant to find buyers, you could just simply have a relative strength move here. We're very close to the 150 support, so bounce up in the Euro Kiwi could take us all the way up to 153, and it's just simply as much a technical trade as anything else. It's sort of just a bounce back trade from where we were this week. Pound Aussie, the story here is also kind of interesting, I think, in the sense that Pound Aussie, from a technical point of view, is entering very stiff resistance at this 170 level, and we're relatively close there. There's probably, maybe, if you get another 100-point move in the pound, the Aussie will come back for a little bit of a bounce back, and that bounce back should provide a pretty decent entry for a 170 short in the pound Aussie. So again, it's a sort of a very tactical but very, very precise type of a play. I don't want to get anywhere into those trades unless I get the prices that we have. And then last but not least, one of the interesting things that you see is that the Aussie Kiwi is still very much in a downtrend, pretty strong downtrend. So here, you do have a potential here for a move possibly down to the 103, just on a relative strength basis. Let's take a look at the charts here, and let me just sort of show you what I mean on all of them. Let's first take a look at these Aussie Kiwi. So you see the Aussie Kiwi move here, very much holding for 6-7 days the 150 level, which suggests that we could bounce back up, and bounce back up the first level of resistance, the 53s, and then ultimately, of course, the 155s. But just simply a small short covering move in the euro for 75, 80 points could be worth a couple hundred points on the Euro Kiwi just on a relative basis. And I would feel pretty good about this trade with a stop below the 150. Once you're below 150 at that point, the whole thesis completely falls apart. Now, Pound Aussie is another one of those just interesting technical trades because it looks very good on the charts, but now we're coming up against that very big 170 resist, which was double bottom support here. Therefore, should very likely be pretty decent resistance. Still not there, but a 100 more point move in the pound itself could probably take us to the 170, and that would be a pretty decent beachhead with a couple 100-point stop for a possible retrace back down. Other than that, there really isn't much that you want to get involved with on the Pound Aussie side. The one that looks the clearest as far as just simply a very obvious downtrend, failure of the lower highs, a breakdown through the 105 level here. It looks to be the Aussie Kiwi. Sort of any kind of a retrace back up to the 105 probably presents a pretty decent opportunity for an entry for a short with a 107 stop, and ultimately maybe a drift all the way down to the 103 level in the Aussie Kiwi as Australian rates continue to potentially compress to the downside. So those are the tactical approaches on the crosses this week. There isn't very much thematic ideas because we don't have, as I said, half a week in terms of data, and also we don't have that much major news on the books. One of the reasons why Aussie Kiwi may potentially also show a little bit of weakness is because Australian data actually was held, New Zealand data was held back because of the earthquake, and we had some leakage on Friday that showed better than expected or hotter than expected PPI, better than expected retail sales. All of that should prove modestly bullish towards the Kiwi. and potentially push us further down in the Aussie Kiwi trade. So that's kind of how the week shapes up. I like the crosses, but only at very, very specific levels. Until then, I would just simply stand back and watch. Wish you guys the best of luck, the best trading. Boris, over and out.